Well, hello, it's Cliff from Down Under. In this video I'm going to talk about the Thule XT2. And whether or not it is a good fit to go on the back of a van. I've made some modifications, simple modifications to it that I think give you a lot more space and flexibility with this Thule bike rack. Full credit to California Time for doing a very good video on the subject that got me into it. I just want to go into it again here with one or two more details that might be useful to you. So in this video I'll go through removing these bungs or stops which give your Thule XT2 bike rack a lot more retraction, a lot more movement away from the vehicle and a lot more clearance. Well, while I've got it open, let's just look at the construction of it. So the main chassis are these two tubes, steel tubes, welded to a central steel portion there that goes over the toe ball in this case. Now that's very strong, being welded steel and heavy section steel tubes. And then we've got what looks like an extruded aluminium component here that sits on top of it, and it's docked in several places with these latches here and these pins and the pivots that normally also hold the bungs or the stops on the end, and they're the parts that I have removed which allow the whole bike rack to tip right over, and that means that it sits over with the handlebars of the bike on the ground. It's bent at about 90 degrees. It's actually more relaxed than when it's straining on its little stops with a lot of leverage. It's set at about 95 degrees or something, and it's just resting on the ground. And the good thing about this is, let's have a look at this closely. So you're clearing there by about 1 centimetre and there by about 6 centimetres. And there's a lot of room here now to stand on either side. Plus you can actually sit on it. So I'm under the tailgate now, and there's a lot of room to get at the back of the van. Let's have a look at that. So if you've got a camper van, you know, you really want to be able to access the back of it because you've got your stuff stored in the back, and you don't want to have to take the bike off every time. So I was quite concerned, will this work if I buy this unit and I take the little stops out? Will it pivot over far enough to clear the tailgate, and will it give me enough space? And if it didn't work, could I take it back to the store and get my money back? But fortunately, it worked perfectly. So thanks to California Time for introducing this subject, and I'm just confirming that in my case, it's worked perfectly well. I was going to put in the little stops or bungs back in again, but looking at the construction of it now, I realize that these are heavy steel tubes with bolts through, with steel inserts down in there, and normally it's sitting on top of these steel chassis tubes. It's actually massively strong. I'm quite confident. I mean, obviously, if anybody makes this modification, they'd have to make their own decision about that. But personally, I'm quite confident that it doesn't need those bungs or stops in there. I may put them in someday, but there's no rush for me. So I'm really happy with this decision because the Thule XT2 folds up into a very small little block, and I can put it away somewhere, and I can go away on my holidays without the bike rack. It's not permanently attached to the van. You can take it off, take the bikes off and take the bike rack off in a few minutes. So we've just come back from our first trip, and it just went very easily and smoothly, feeling very positive about it. Well, now I'll go through the removal of these two bungs or stops, but you might want to stay on to the end of the video because I'll talk about it more generally there and point out a couple of things to be wary of. So I put it up on a small bench like this. You might want to put it on the floor or a small bench also. Seems to work quite well if you rest the locking lever down on the surface. This means that the whole unit is on a slight angle at a height that's easy to get at. So that's how I did it anyway. So this is the bung here that we're going to remove. It's injection molded out of some tough polymer. And in order to remove it, that's it taken out of this side, we need to take this bolt, these bolts out. That's a M8mm cap screw with a nylock nut on the inside. That's it there, still assembled. So we remove that and pull that bolt out, but you still can't pull the bung right out because it hits on this arm assembly here. So you need to also remove these little bolts. They're shoulder screws and they go through there. And they've got a 6mm thread on, but they're an 8mm diameter shoulder screw, and that allows you to lift this whole U-shaped arm up higher to give you enough clearance to tap the bung out. Now it's a not too tight a fit, but it taps out fairly easily, and you can see there's a good length of engagement in there, and to lift it right up out of there you just need to slip those shoulder screws out and move those arms up. I'll go into the details in a minute, but that's the process. Rest it on that surface, remove this bolt, do one at a time, remove the little shoulder screw, tap it out, I'll show you how to do that, and then reassemble this side. Then we'll go ahead now and do this side. Just a couple of little edits on that. I think I showed the shoulder screw round the wrong way. It's actually that way. There's a little plastic cap over the nut like that. So now it's probably not optimal to completely remove the bung. It's probably better to reshape the end and put it back in again, because it's quite a structurally strong injection molded, probably an industrial polymer part, and it probably will be stronger if it's reassembled with the bung back in there. But I'm initially going to remove them just to make sure that I get enough drop back so the bikes clear the tailgate of the van. If I do, and I'm 99% sure I will, because I've seen another video showing that this works, California time was it, then I'll probably change the shape of that a little bit so that I can put these bungs back in again. Alright, let's go through the procedure. So we've got a 5mm Allen key, a 13mm ring spanner, and we're just going to unscrew that until the little nylock nut comes off. That's it there. Then we're going to pull this right out. This one's coming out a bit more easily. You might need to screw it out through the plastic part. I'm just going to unscrew that right out. So I've still got the bolt in the other side, so that the whole thing doesn't fly apart when this comes out. It's sort of held in position by the other side. That's why I'm doing one side at a time. Alright, so hopefully you can see me there. Now, there doesn't seem to be any little washers in there. No, this looks like a steel insert in here, but that's fairly large. I think that's going to be fine. There's no obvious washers. So now we're going to tap that out. So I've got a screwdriver, a medium screwdriver, and we're going to go in through that hole there. You see that? And I'm going to see the gap there. I'm going to try and prise it up. See the gap open up there? So you can get that medium-sized screwdriver. You know, it's got about a 7mm wide blade or something. Now I can get the screwdriver in there. You don't want to mar it and make a mess of it. So I've opened up a gap of about 2mm. Now I can. You see that all right? Coming in on an angle. It's not too tight. It's too tight to pull out by hand, but not too bad. Now it's just coming over on a bit of an angle. Should be able to get that now. So there we are. That's it removed. Now I can put that bolt back in again. So there's the cap screw and a nylock nut. The cap screw goes through from the outside, and it's probably got slightly out of alignment, so I'll just do this off camera now so you're not watching me faff around for too long. So that's it back in now. So the tools required for that are a 5mm hexagon wrench or Allen key and a 13mm, probably a 1/2 inch would do if you're in the States, 13mm ring spanner or socket in your socket set, could be a ratchet socket, and you can take the bungs out and put those bolts back in again. Then we just need to, here we've got the little shoulder screw with a 6mm nut and a little plastic cap on it. So you just prise that cap off, then this can be put together with the shoulder screw that way with the thread on the outside. You can go back into there. There's a little spacer there. That's just a plastic part, probably nylon, that can drop in there and then it all tightens up. I'll just do that off camera to save your time. So there we are, we've just put that little shoulder screw in there. So the tools for that are, where did I put the tools for that? So we've got a 5mm Allen key, the same size Allen key, because it's a shoulder screw, but just a little 10mm socket or ring spanner, just to tighten that up lightly because it's a nylon nut, nylock nut. And then can you see there, that just pops over the top of the nut to tidy it up. So that isn't the nut, that's a little shroud over the nut. Now I'll do the same on the other side. We're ready to put it on the van and see how much more drop we have. Okay, so the bike rack is back on now. We've put one bike on the outside. So Jan, if you would drop it down, just push the trigger and lower it all the way down. And it goes all the way down till the handlebar touches on the ground. So that's at a full angle of at least 90 degrees. So just open the tailgate really slowly. It's clearing that lever by about 2 centimeters, and there by about 5-6 centimeters, and away we go. Open it right up. Can you lift the bike rack up again now? See if it clears underneath the tailgate. Oh, wait on, you might just cut the cable off like that, but yeah, that's going to clear. I just have to make sure the little electrical cable's out the way. Thanks, babe. Just drop it back down again. Thank you. On the handlebar. Great. So you can see there it's bent at about 90 degrees. It's pivoted at about 90 degrees, and that's where the bungs would normally go. So I think the bungs could go back in if they had a bit shaved off the top, and that would be a better way to do it. So please note this is just my own personal modification, and I'm not in any way guaranteeing that it's a good thing to do. You may well void Thule's warranty. So this is a decision you would have to make for yourself as to whether you went through this procedure, but it definitely gives you a lot more clearance. So now we've got it lying completely over on the ground. The handlebar is on the ground. It's actually not under stress. Seems a lot happier like that. So let's have a look at the clearance. I'll see if I can do this with one hand. So let's lift the tailgate up, and you can see there is a gap between the locking lever and the bottom of the tailgate of about 1 or 2 centimeters. But this is the bit that we've really changed, because now we've got a gap there of about 5 centimeters. So that's a huge improvement, and you can see where the bungs were there. So the pivot is about 90 degrees now, whereas before, when it was resting on the bungs or the stops, it was less than 90 degrees. So just looking at the little bung or stop there, you can see the lobe on it. This shape here is probably where it rests when it's pivoted back, and if you wanted to put the bung or stop back in, you'd probably need to saw it off somewhere like that. This is a good quality industrial injection molding. I've had a bit of a background in plastics myself, and looking at it closely, I'd say it's glass-filled nylon. I could be wrong about that, but I'm fairly sure it's glass-filled nylon, and that seems like a really good choice. It's very strong industrial polymer. So if that's back in the tube, the whole tube integrity and strength is better, so it would be better to put that back. I probably don't need to do a detailed review of how you would use the unit. There's plenty of other YouTube videos on that. There's these two arms that are extendable and adaptable and adjustable, and they clamp over the frame, a long one for the back bike and a short one for the front bike. And these straps here, which with one hand's not easy, but they hold the wheels down very effectively. Very clever little design there that ratchets tight, and so the bike is held on really solid. Have a look at the other videos if you want all of those details, because I'm trying to keep this video fairly concise. I probably don't need to do a detailed review of how you would use the unit. There's plenty of other YouTube videos on that. There's these two arms that are extendable and adaptable and adjustable, and they clamp over the frame, a long one for the back bike and a short one for the front bike. And these straps here, which with one hand's not easy, but they hold the wheels down very effectively. Very clever little design there that ratchets tight, and so the bike is held on really solid. Have a look at the other videos if you want all of those details, because I'm trying to keep this video fairly concise. A good feature of the Thule XT2 is that it doesn't take up much room on the back of the van. It's very compact, but it does mean that if you've got bulky bikes, they'll likely be rubbing together. So you want to think about something like a piece of heavy rubber mat that's inserted between the points where it would normally rub, perhaps wired on with a piece of plastic coated wire like that. That's a really practical way of doing it. Just something like this. You can buy rubber matting pretty cheaply, cut it into a square, put a bit of plastic coated wire through it, and you can wrap that round at those vulnerable points on your bike. One of the problems with e-bikes is that they're pretty heavy and the frames are bulky, and there's not that many places you can actually grip them with those arms. This is one little spot that I found there, so I can show you better from the other side, from there. And that's about the only place that I can hold this high bike with the short arm. So it's possible, if you've got two e-bikes that you could have a problem with a position for both arms. One of the features I really like about this new generation of folding bike racks is that they fold up so compact and small like a suitcase, and makes it easy to store at home or when you're away on holiday going for a ride on your bike. You can take it off the tow bar or hitch and put it inside your van, and it's much more secure. So while the tailgate mounted bike rack may have had the edge in the past, because it's so compact and tidy and you can leave it attached, I think for heavier e-bikes, and particularly if you're older, it's much easier to mount them on a low mounted bike rack. And these new folding style, for example the Thule XT2 style bike racks, are just so convenient that I think it's tipping the scales in favor of this option if you want to mount them on the back of a van like the Volkswagen California. I just moved inside because the traffic noise is driving me nuts. So you've got to think about, with your particular tow ball, will the tailgate clear? If it's too high, it might catch on the tailgate, and if the tow ball is too low, the whole thing might be a bit close to the road, depending on the type of terrain you're driving on. So, you know, different vans, different tow ball positions, different folding bike racks. There's different brands. There's Yakima, Thule, there's several other ones. Will have different fit relationships, so you need to consider that. So what I suggest you do is either take your van down to the supply store, or ask the supply store, can I pay for it, take it away, and if it doesn't fit, return it. That way you're avoiding an expensive disaster. So okay, so let's say you pay for it, you take it home, don't do the modification straight away, but rather just fit it on the tow ball, check that it's going to clear the tailgate lip, check in a steep part of your driveway that you've got enough ground clearance underneath. Make sure you're happy with it in general terms, but don't do the modification. Then if everything else is okay and it looks like it's going to work, then you can do the modification if you decide you want to do that. You can also buy a folding arm. I think Yakima make them, that kind of pivots in half and extends the whole thing further back. But I think that this modification that is suggested by the YouTube California time is a better modification, because the whole thing is a better option, because the whole thing is a lot more compact, lower cost, less things to go wrong, less bulky, less weight. Thanks for watching that video. I wanted to keep it fairly concise. I'll go into some more details now for those of you who are interested, but that's the bulk of the video. So please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Let me know in the comments below. So now I'm going to go into some more rather long-winded technical details that might be helpful for some of you who are considering this option. For example, the particular type of tow ball, I'll just give you some information that I've learned doing this. It could be helpful. So, for example, around the world, there's different specifications for tow balls and rectangular hitch mounts and hitch receivers. So just be aware that if you're buying this, that it will be compatible with your vehicle. For example, I needed to change the tow ball over. I had a New Zealand tow ball on there, which is an 1 7/8", I think, 47mm diameter ball, and these European Thule bike racks have a 50mm diameter ball. So you need to change that. Also, you need to make sure that the actual construction details are that there's not a broad radius here, but rather a fairly sharp transition, even a little flat on the underneath. And that means, because the way that the unit clamps onto the tow ball, it's actually like fingers closing around the neck of the toe ball, not on the ball but around the neck. It's located at the top as far as I can see to centralize it, but the main grip is around the neck. It's got fingers going around the neck, and if there's a big radius there, then it's not going to grip it well. It's just going to be on the radius, and that's not secure, and it could damage those fingers or collets, if you like, that hold it on the toe ball. So you need to buy a toe ball that has got the right profile and the right diameter, depending on the particular situation and on your van in the country that you live in. And I'm not an expert on the specifications and regulations and standards for this type of thing. I have an engineering background, but I don't have that specific knowledge. So you need to check out that wherever you are to make sure that you've got a compatible system there. I mean, obviously if you're in Europe and you're buying a Thule, it's probably going to be fine, you know, but if you're in maybe Australia or New Zealand or Canada or the US, I don't know, it could be a completely different system. So another thing you want to check before you purchase or modify the folding bike rack is, can the little jaws that clasp, the little clamps that clasp onto the frame work on your particular bike? Make sure, put your actual bike on and make sure that fits as well. You can buy things that are sort of like an arm and a frame adapter that clip onto the seat mount and the handlebar mount, for example, and then your little jaw can come over that. That may be an option if you've got an e-bike that's just too bulky to grip with the normal little jaws. So that's worth checking as well, that the bikes will actually fit before you do any modifications. And if your toe ball is just too high and you're catching the tailgate lip on the folding bike rack, you've got a problem, obviously. And if you lower it, if you are able to lower it, or if it is too low, then your bike rack may be too close to the ground and some particular steep hollow in the road, or where the driveway comes down to the road. So obviously you want to think about that carefully too before you make the decision. It may be possible to modify the position of your toe ball. I have an engineering background, but I don't have specific knowledge about the regulations and requirements and limitations of what you could do to modify it. But you could take your vehicle to a toe ball installer, toe bar installer, type of fabricating engineer that does that type of work, and talk to them about it. There may be also a different type of toe ball that you can mount that's taller or lower. It may be possible to modify the toe bar mount so that it's on a slightly different angle. I don't know about all of those details. I was lucky that in the position it was in, it cleared as per the California time video on the VW California tailgate, and this particular Thule bike rack. But you know, different bike racks and different vans may not be as lucky.